We're deep into free agency. We got more deals to look at. We got to look at some dynasty trades, dynasty values, what we want to do with these players. We got a ton of players today compared to the other days to look at. So we got even more, some bonus players intact here. Before we dig in, though, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're looking at player values every day. We're looking at trades. We're looking at the rookies. We're looking at rookie drafts. However we can, we're going to help you build your dynasty teams. We're going to help you patch some holes and everything else. Click that button. Stop missing out. We're starting off with Evan Engram going to the Broncos. And they had a huge hole at tight end going into the offseason. We were looking at the first round, looking at Colston Loveland. Like, that's a fit. Evan Engram gets dropped by the Jaguars. He's not really sitting there too long. He's going to Denver. We're signed. Last year, Bo Nix targeted tight end 14% of the time. However, Javonte Williams got more targets than expected. On top of that, they weren't steady at tight end. They did not have the talent. Nothing compared to an Evan Engram. Compared to what we saw back in 2023. He was hurt in 2024. Came back from that. And then we had some quarterback issues. We had Mac Jones in there. A lot of things came to a head in 2024 that really impacted Evan Engram. But we look back at 2023. Rather solid here. And Bo Nix is good for tight ends, good for slot receivers, good for guys who run shorter targets because that's where he likes to go with it. Especially when everything's locked down downfield. He'll live to play another down, check it down, go to the tight end that's open, not force things. And we're looking at Evan Engram. Last year had a 25.1% target share. 8 out of 5.6. And that's about normal for a tight end. Actually, a little bit low, but it's usually like the 6 to 7 range on the ADOT. A 25% target share for a tight end is elite and top tier, even though the numbers wasn't there, production-wise. And like I said, Javonte Williams was second on the team in targets last year. He's gone. That's got to go somewhere. We're looking at the tight ends that were on the board for this team. Kroll, Trotman, everybody else. Wasn't happening. Evan Engram's a big upgrade for this team, especially short to intermediate, soaking up volume. Look for him to push for a 20% target share. 13% of the targets are now gone. They went to Dallas. We're looking at Evan Engram here. Evan Engram runs a lot of routes. He ran 21.4 routes per game. That's an average with him coming back from an injury as well. Target separation, 10th among tight ends. Target accuracy, 21st. So we might have an increase on that as well. This is a good fit. This is a tight end that lost some value, lost some steam due to like a downfall or a decrease in production and back in the season. But maybe that shouldn't be. I look for him to be valuable and more valuable than some of the players listed here. However, this is just a listing and for ideas for trades. Like I always say, it's not concrete or tit for tat. Mike Williams going to the Chargers. Getting that crafty veteran, getting him back on their team, getting some continuity with Justin Herbert. For fantasy football, cheap stock for the short term. And if he starts hitting, if he does anything, and you can get any value for him, you got to ship him off. If you're a win-now team, maybe. If you're looking for a jabroni wide receiver that's super cheap. But remember, the word jabroni wide receiver means something there. But Mike Williams, a rough 2024 season. We've had our time with the Chargers. Quentin Johnson was very volatile last year. He was very up and down. Josh Palmer's gone. That's 66 targets over 15 games. A lot of that could go to Mike Williams. It's not a deep wide receiver class. This allows the Chargers to really look at other positions of need. Ladd McConkey is going to be that dude. Mike Williams is not, but he could get you targets downfield. He might have a couple games where he does something. And a lot of flatline games. We're 30 years old. We've had a riddled injury history. It's the Ladd McConkey show for the Chargers. Quentin Johnston, highly volatile. However, he came to his own a little bit last year. Maybe he does a little bit better. Mike Williams is a guy to pay attention to in deeper leagues if you want to. Mac Jones, though, going to the 49ers. Something to pay attention to. Brock Purdy's the man there right now. But the Niners, with all these moves, I believe is going to be weird this year. They're going to be weird this year. And if you're in a 2 QB league and you're looking for backups around this range, like QB 30 to 50 range, maybe Maybe. They're going to be weird this year. They're looking to retool that offensive line in that first round. We're seeing a lot of picks fall that way. They're really moving around some wide receivers. I look for the Niners to be weird this year. Maybe Mac Jones steps in, gets you some production from weeks 13 to 18 again. Something like that. Maybe something like that happens. Who knows? Injuries happen. But Mac Jones has some rapport with his coaching staff as Shanahan wanted him when they were drafting and just didn't pull the trigger. Mac Jones, I'm not saying he's a buy, but that's just something to look at for Superflex leagues. Adam Thielen, I'm not going to say he's a buy, but he's a guy that could really be a sneaky player, valued at wide receiver 100 range right now. That could help you on the back end of your depth chart. That could be on the roster. He's probably already rostered. He's probably hoarded. If he's available or if he's still for pennies, you may want to look at that. We're going to be 35 years old soon. Maybe one last go around. But we can probably get a couple or a handful wide receiver 1 games and multiple double-digit games. And that's not really impactful for winning your league. But once you got your roster set in stone and you're looking at wide receivers on the back end of your depth chart, you're either looking for players that can develop for the future or guys that can help you get through bye weeks now. He's a guy that could potentially do that going into 2025. Bryce Young's looking a little bit better. He's an incredibly cheap wide receiver. He was in redraft. He's going to have a redraft price. And when he got healthy, a lot of redrafters liked this guy, and they were picking him up off the waiver wire. So he's a guy that you can use for the now. And he'll probably give you some production. And it's probably going to be volatile. It's probably going to be up and down. But you know what? You're not relying on him as a starter. As just a guy, as a utility guy on your depth chart. As you're looking at him last year with a 20% target share, 8 out of 8.5. That screams volatility. We'll probably see that. We have Xavier Legette. We have Jalen Coker. Maybe somebody else through the draft. But a reliable veteran that will be on the field seeing opportunities. But Rico Dowdle also going to the Carolina Panthers. Thielen's new teammate. And Jonathan Brooks, we got to look at him. That value is going to be very interesting. But Rico Dowdle, 1,000-yard rusher. 3 RB1 weeks, multiple RB2 games, sharing the backfield with Chuba Hubbard. You may think he's worthless now or whatever because it's the Chuba Hubbard show. And Chuba Hubbard needs a lot more respect than what ADP is giving him. Rico Dowdle, though, and looking at Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders had some games last year. He had like 2 of them where he ran 20-some routes, getting opportunity. They use 2 running backs. They want to use 2 running backs. They have stated multiple times prior to the season, middle of the season, right before Jonathan Brooks came back from that injury, that they want to use 2 running backs. They want to use 2 guys. Rico Dowdle will get some opportunity in this offense. It won't be grandiose. He probably won't get you 12 points per game. He might give you some okay volatility. And on top of that, if I'm stacking or if I'm stashing running backs or any position, it's the running back position. And it doesn't matter who. If you're on a depth chart, I'm looking at you. Depending on how deep my Dynasty League and rosters are, looking at opportunity share last year, 16th among running backs. Yards created, 17th among running backs. He's okay. He's good. He's all right. Yards created per touch, 30th, 3.45, but it's fine. I like him. He's an upgrade over Miles Sanders. He'll be getting workload. Sanders had 55 rushing attempts. He might get a little bit more than that. He'll be more efficient than 3.7 yards per carry. He was more efficient behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. Panthers are making some moves. We're playing with Chuba Hubbard, so the workload's lightened there, so he'll be fresh for the end of the season. All things to look at. Chuba Hubbard, 250 carries last year. Not a crazy year when it comes to workload compared to like a Kyron Williams. You never know. The injury bug might come up, and that might allow Rico Dowdle to step up. As we're seeing him being valued here, I look for him to hold steady where he's at, maybe even be a little bit lower considering he's not projected to be the starter. I look for him to be fluid. Be fluid. And if you want him, if you're interested for a back-end running back, or if you got Chuba, maybe if you want to, I would see if I can catch him on the low. That's what I would look at. Kenneth Gainwell going to the Steelers. This is a very juiced up, twitched up running back that's good at all phases. That should not be used as a workhorse. But you know what? He looks like a Steeler because he can do it a little bit between the tackles, catch the ball out of the backfield. Probably will get some opportunity this year. Probably will give you some of this production throughout the season as they're trying to work him in. Really depends on who's the quarterback. We do not know who the quarterback is, but it's not going to be too great. What? It's Russ, Aaron Rodgers. Maybe we get lucky and someone falls to us in the draft. Maybe, but none of those guys are starters. We don't have like a day one starter in the draft right now. When we're looking at Kenneth Gainwell, RB82, he's a good guy to have on the back end of your Dynasty roster. See what happens. And that's about it. See what happens. And I can say that for like 90-some% of the running backs out there. Again, we weren't getting much workload last year with the Eagles. It's a Saquon Barkley show. Najee Harris gone. Jaylen Warren probably staying, but they got that tender thing going on with him. Kenneth Gainwell's a huge ad, though. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He's explosive, very productive coming out of college. Big-time back, going to the Steelers. It might be an underrated landing spot for him. As people were looking for the Steelers to draft the running back in the first round, they still could do that if one falls to them. That could still happen. Looking at where he's being valued up, I don't see him jumping the board. I see Dynasty gamers just watching from afar. And if you believe that the Steelers are not going to pull the trigger on a running back and you want to take that gamble, there you go. I believe all running backs have some value because once we get in season and attrition hits, then they could be useful if they get the call up. That could happen. And then when you look at it that way, it's like a Rochambeau for them running backs. Elijah Mitchell going to the Chiefs. We got a vast injury history. This happened the other day. Fits in well with this offense and what they want. They like speed. They like guys who can catch the ball in the backfield a little bit. He's very explosive, often injured though. He can be an RB1 any given week. He can also be an RB none any given week. And we know this is a great fit. This is a good end-of-bench stash play. But the market's saying that right now. It's shot up. It's shot up quickly. People like to collect Chiefs players like Pokemon. So the days of getting Elijah Mitchell at a value, you might want to sell out if you want to. Or just collect Chiefs running backs. It also says that, hey, we can still draft the running back. I think every team in the league can draft another running back. That is a position you can also stack up on talent from RB1 to RB3 or 4 and feel good that you have extra guys. That's what the Jets are doing, and they could draft another guy. And if you draft a guy in the 5th, 6th round, that's going to be a dog, and that's going to be a guy that's going to push competition. A.J. Dillon going to the Eagles, a big, physical, highly athletic runner to be paired with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is going to be the guy, and we're going to see A.J. Dillon use it intermittently. He's got a little bit of an injury history there. On top of that, A.J. Dillon, not the greatest running back for the Packers, but still he had his moments. Good size adjusted athleticism with this kid. I still like Will Shipley a lot. He'll probably be worked in here and there, but honestly, Saquon Barkley has been hurt often throughout his career, especially with the Giants. That could always rear its head back up, but that's with any running back. That's just with any running back. It's not even analysis, it's common sense, because running backs just take a lot of hits. That's just what happens, and that's why all running backs, RB2, RB3 on the depth chart, are guys to pay attention to once we're in season. So you're watching A.J. Dillon. You're wanting to see what this team does in the draft. I believe every team in the league could potentially use another running back, especially in this year's draft, one way or another, UDFA, 7th rounder, 1st rounder, whatever, depending on their needs. But there's talent in this draft, and they can shuffle some decks. Saquon Barkley's safe. Of course, A.J. Dillon's not competing with him, but watch this backfield throughout the season. Samaje Perine going to the Bengals. Very ho-hum. The Bengals could still get another running back in the draft. What do we like about Perine? Continuity with the Bengals. Can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield. Big physical runner. A good meat shield for Chase Brown so he does not get too much work. Keep him upright. He's not going to steal Chase Brown's job. He's very dependable. Dependable enough to keep the Bengals afloat and moving the chains. But not too good to where he's going to steal Chase Brown's job. If I have Chase Brown, I kind of like this move. And if I'm the Bengals, I kind of like this move as well. You got a proven vet here that can hold it down. He's not going to win you games in fantasy unless something happens. And he might. He might if something happens where there's injuries and he's the dude because he's done it a couple times before. But he's not going to be an overall half a season league winner. Maybe a game here and there type of dude. But Samaje Perine looked like he was dust with the Chiefs. Kareem Hunt took it over. Chase Brown's, it's his job. Don't rule out the Bengals not drafting another running back. Of course, Perine's cheap. Khalil Herbert going to the Colts. Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. It's happened. We've seen that. Looking through his career, that's what we see. Looking at Khalil Herbert, we can say the same thing. We can say the same thing about most running backs. I'll definitely say this in season last year. When Taylor was out, we were looking at Trey Sermon, Tyler Goodson. People were pulling up at the waiver wire, getting those running backs like crazy, wondering if they could hit. And what I said about those running backs is they're not top-tier talents, but they're getting touches. They're a touchback. Any running back in the National Football League who's getting touches can give you potential, and you may want to look at it as that. Khalil Herbert might get his opportunity to get touches in 2025. He might get that. He's proven to be productive. He's got some juice left, and maybe we can make it happen with the Colts for a short time. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor makes it so he doesn't. But you know, you always want to have that insurance policy. He's, again, another cheap backup running back to look at going into the 2025 season. You just want a couple of them. You just want a couple of them. You also want the rookies. You also want some of those random backups. We got to look at them. They have some value. You want to look at the starters, and if they get roughed up a couple times a year and it seems to be the average, there's a good chance of that happening, maybe you want that backup just to plug in or to deal away when people got set lineups or whatever your strategy is. There's a bunch of them. There's a good pool of them. But you just want to have a couple. You just want to have a couple. And you do not want to be so like pinpointed on one guy or this guy or that guy. Because honestly, it's at random. It's at random. Whoever gets hurt on any given week. From Halloween to Thanksgiving, we did not get hardly any injuries at the running back position. We did not. We had to talk about the rookie running backs and pickups off the waiver wire and redraft every week during that time. I can't talk about Blake Corum that much. I can't do that. So the injuries are going to ramp up a little bit more to average because it was below average. So we got to get back to average, which is going to feel like a little bit more to us because the last two seasons has been a little bit lighter. Think about that. Think about the backup running backs. Think about the starters. What could happen to them? But keep your mind open because it's really at random due to attrition. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.